So if you agree the world's going to hell in a handbasket and this country's going to hell in a handbasket and we're in a long, slow decline at this point, you'll love my next guest, Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement and author of Texit, Why and How Texas Will Leave the Union. His website for the Texas Nationalist Movement is TNM, Texas Nationalist Movement, TNM.me, TNM.me. Hey, Daniel Miller, welcome to the Wayne Allyn Root Show.
Hey, Wayne, thanks for having me.
So, the first thing we want to do is we want to establish your credibility. You're not a tinfoil hat wearing crazy man. You're a person who just sees what I see, terrible decline in the country. And I've said on this show that maybe, and I don't know how you achieve it, I have no idea how it happens. In the Civil War, they didn't even allow it. That's why there was a war. The South tried to break away, and Lincoln said, no, you're not. And a war began. They didn't allow them to break away peacefully. So who's going to allow Texas to break away peacefully? Even though I say on this show, we probably need to secede. We need a group of states that do not want to be governed by Joe Biden, but rather want to be governed by conservative, low tax, no regulation type of government. I want to find a way to do this, but legally it seems to me they'll never let us do it. So tell us that you're not insane and you have a real way to do this.
No, I am not insane, although I am sure that there are some in the progressive movement and the opposition that would disagree with that assessment. Look, here's the bottom line. When the idea of any state exercising the right of self-determination comes up, the go-to is always the 19th century, right? They want to, they're a bunch of Civil War role players. And honestly, I think they sort of harbor that sort of resentment and want to do that again. But look, when I woke up this morning, it was the 21st century. And what we have over the last 75 years is examples all around the world where independence, self-determination, self-government have blossomed. At the end of World War II, there were 54 recognized countries around the world. And at the end of the 20th century, there were 192. Those countries didn't fall from space. The Earth didn't get bigger, right? Those were constituent parts of larger unions. And so, while the rest of the world has been dealing with this problem in largely an adult manner, the concept of states leaving the union seems to be stuck because of the opposition argument and their desire to live in the 1800s. And that's just not the way things work anymore.
So you made an announcement today, right? If I'm not mistaken, we've got you on the show in the perfect timing. You announced today the Texas Independence Referendum Act. What does it say and what does it mean?
Yeah, it was actually last week when we made the announcement, and essentially, for me personally, I've been at this fight for Texas independence for 24 years. The organization, the Texas Nationalist Movement, has been around since 2005. And for us, one of the biggest, parts of our mission is to have what eventually became known as a Brexit-style vote on independence here in Texas. And that all really begins with the Texas Independence Referendum Act. So we received word last week that one of our state representatives has taken the Texas Independence Referendum Act, has submitted it to Ledge Council, and has publicly declared that he will be filing it at the start of the legislative session.
And so what does it mean? Tell us exactly what is the meeting, what's the platform, what's the apparatus to make this happen? And once it happens, what does it mean?
Yeah, it's the Referendum Act is pretty much what it says on the tin, Wayne. We understand that issues like this must always be put to the people, right? And, even if you don't go back to sort of Jeffersonian principles, if you look at just the plain language of the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, says that all political power is inherent in the people and that they have the right to reform, alter, or abolish their form of government in such manner as they may think expedient. So, very Jeffersonian. But what that does is that guides us in this issue of Texas staying or leaving the Union. It must be put to a vote of the people. Now, Texas statute doesn't give us a mechanism to have that referendum. We're one of the few states that doesn't have citizen initiative. So
Really?
All of this type of legislation must go through the Texas legislature. And what this bill does is it establishes the framework in statute that will give us a vote. So if and when the vote passes, and we're really optimistic about this session of the legislature, In November of 2021, Texans will go to the polls and they will be asked a simple question. Should the state of Texas reassert its status as an independent nation?
And what if the answer is yes? What does that mean exactly in your mind?
Well, at that moment, the will of the people will have to be done. There will exist a mandate. So, beyond that, I talk about these steps in my book, Texas, Why and How Texas Will Leave the Union, and we have an entire section on our website dedicated to it. It's at tnm.me/Texas. But essentially what happens is, according to the legislation, a legislative committee will meet, and they will address 5 key issues. Constitutional changes that will have to be made to bring Texas in line with an independent republic, changes to statutes, changes to agencies in the executive branch, international covenants and agreements and multilateral agreements that Texas will have to sign on to minimize disruption. And the final part is the negotiated issues that we have to deal with related to the United States federal government.
And have you done any polling at all? Do you have any idea where the average Texan stands and what the numbers are?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. There's actually been what I would consider extensive polling on this issue since 2005. When we started the TNM, support for Texas independence was in single digits. But then, you start moving along to 2009, 2014, where you begin to see these clear lines develop along the question where you've got a majority of Republicans, you've got right about a majority of independent voters, and even in one of the polls in 2014, during the Obama second term, you had over a third of Democrats say that Texas should become an independent nation. So, obviously we feel very comfortable with our ability to carry this thing in a landslide. Beyond we will get the vote beyond the margin of theft, so to speak, or else we wouldn't be pushing it so hard.
Right. And I see here that Texans overpay anywhere between $103 billion and $160 billion per year. Tell everyone what that means exactly. That's the money you send to Washington and the amount that comes back, and you are a negative net loser on that. So why stay in the union, right? That's your theory.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is no good case for Texas to stay in the union, right? I mean, we just like the stat you talked about, the $103 to $160 billion a year that we overpay into the union, right? That's money that's sucked out of the pockets of Texas taxpayers and goes to fund, these failed states and cities like Chicago or Detroit or some of these other places, total wealth redistribution. And that money, it leaves our pockets, leaving us to try to fix the challenges that we need to fix here in Texas, but without the money to do it. And really, Wayne, what it boils down to is beyond the economic arguments, Texans are just sick and tired of living under 180,000 pages of federal laws, rules, and regulations administered by 440 separate unaccountable agencies and living under 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats. At the end of the day, Texans believe that the best people to govern Texas are Texans.
And I assume that the Rhino establishment, like Cornyn and people like that, are not backing you. Ted Cruz ever say anything about this? Any of the major politicians line up either behind you or at least, kind of subtly saying we're with you?
A lot of these guys love to use the idea of Texas independence as applause lines and stump speeches, right? And even some confess their love and affection for the idea behind closed doors. But, frankly, it is part and parcel of the problem that we have here with people on our side with these pro-Texan values, which is, when they get to elected office, they seem to have been castrated. They want to play the middle. They want to appease these various crowds and keep all of their donors happy. But at the end of the day, on this issue, everyone will be forced to take a public stand one way or the other. And I would not want to be an establishment politician standing between the people of Texas and a vote on independence.
All right, expect something to happen soon. I assume in the 2021 legislative session, that's when you expect it'll happen. Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, author of Texas, Why and How Texas Will Leave the Union. Website for the Texas Nationalist Movement, TNM.me for Texas Nationalist Movement.me, TNM.me. Daniel, good luck, man. you may be the last refuge for all of us. The whole conservative America may be coming to Texas, and I hope it's the Republic of Texas when we do. I hope you let me in without a passport. Wayne Allyn Root. Thank you, Daniel.